asking. About being whether it's the power of now or, you see it now floating around, that being aware of what's happening is important. And in neuroplastic theory and application, it's recognized that there's so much stimulation going on. So much. In communication theory, it's mostly called noise. There's so much meaningless chatter going on that most of everything we disregard. It's meaningless. And the brain likes to make sense of nonsense. It really, that's the thing that it wants. It wants things to make sense, because most of the stimulation is nonsense. Like right now, I'd like you to sense your left big toe. You probably weren't aware of your left big toe until I just said, pay attention to your left big toe. Now, that's only one of, I'll make this up, 1 trillion signals that are happening right now. Pay attention to the sound of people moving in the room right now. This little right? How about pay attention to your breathing in your nose, in your left nostril? So there's so much signaling going on that is nonsense. You're unaware. It's unimportant. Neuroplastic change happens at the pivotal experience when attention attends the experience. I did it last night with Paula's left knee, if you were there. I'll do it right now again if you weren't there, here with Liz's right foot, right? Now what I'm going to do is something that I think will give her some pleasure, right? So she's feeling some pleasure in her right foot. If you were there last night, I won't do it. If I had a screwdriver and I jammed her right foot to create pain. And you know the answer if you're there last night. What do they have in common? The pleasure of the massage and the screwdriver of pain. What do they have in common? What is the same? I'm out of the camera. What do they have in...
Attention.
Yeah. In both cases, Liz's attention goes to her right foot. This is what pain and pleasure, the main job they have is to direct what we'll call the mind's alerted attention to something. And now, what was meaningless becomes meaningful. What was nonsense becomes sensible. Sensing. Awareness. This is at the root of all neuroplastic change, positive and negative. I'm not even talking about methodology, I'm just talking about the way that we walk through life. And this is why in classic behavioristic conditioning, you use reward and punishment. It calls significance to the moment. Right? That's why, and I think many of us here, are spiritual practitioners of some sort in some way, just generally speaking. It's kind of our tendency, right? You can see why many techniques are the way they are. Because if you proceed into the experience without attention, if you're not aware, if you're not listening, if you're not present, whatever, the brain just disregards that as more of that, what Merzenich calls meaningless chatter, just noise. So this is one of the tricks. I mean, if it all ended right now and you all went away and I went away and there was nothing about the neurolight or anything, it's about neuroplasticity, just this one thing. Notice where you put your attention. Notice right now even what ideas seem significant to you and what other ideas just kind of slide by into the garbage bin of stuff. So this is the thing about neuroplasticity that is so extraordinary, is that it's happening all the time. You can't stop it. You can't, even if you wanted to, you can't stop it. Because you would have to have no awareness or any attention of any experience. Well, you do. You do right now, right? What's the temperature like in the room? Do you feel like you're overdressed, underdressed? You want to take your scarf off? You know? Anybody have any place itchy? Huh? You feel itchy? Any place in your body itchy? Why don't you scratch a little bit? Okay, anybody else you feel itchy? Any place? I feel a little bit itchy right here. Okay. It's fascinating the way that now that you know that, how you work with yourself or how you work with somebody in neuroplasticity involves alerted attention, that you alert them to whatever. Touch is one of the biggies. You know? In neuroplasticity, there are 3 avenues. And I say that there are 3 because they're subdivided in terms of methodology. It's false to think that they are separate in the organism. They're always the same, always together. We like to separate things, analyze them as though they're separate, and then try to reconnect them. How you move, your mental activity, which is a combination of thought and emotional states, and sensations, the sensory. Movements, mental, and sensory. Those are the 3 avenues, the 3 mediums to discuss things with your brain. Is it getting stuffy? Do you want some more fresh air in here? Because we have the heaters on. I think we can turn the heaters off now. There's our 2.
Yeah, watch your cable.
I've just been disciplined. Okay. Yeah, there's a switch on this one, on the cord. The white thing on the wall has a switch.
The radio?
The white thing on the wall has a switch, and those 2 just have buttons. Click, click. And the restroom is back there. Let's leave the door open for a little bit, just to get a little bit of air, because I think it's going to be a pleasant temperature. It was really chilly in here in the morning, so I turned them on to take the chill out. Okay, so movement, mental, and sensory. Actually, all 3 happen at the same time all the time, although one could be more dominant than the other. In neuroplasticity, as an approach to wellness, as well as an aspect of conventional medicine, most of the attention has been going to the mental or the cognitive. So, you know, different mind games, different puzzles, different things you do, watch this, choose that. Some of the most exciting work that I've seen is now the new generation of video games and virtual reality processes. Some of them, I mean, very exotic. I mean, this is only, you know, large institutions are doing this academically and also is essentially for profit. But it's the idea that you can get real time, almost real time, as about a third of a second delay on like functional MRI processes. The head is all geared and wired, and the person is doing something, and based on their skill response, let's say it's coordination, agility, which we'll talk about later, they actually get real-time feedback, so the program is adjusting to them as they do it. And the neuroplastic skill acquisition is like just shooting up. I live in Thailand, and of the 200 channels that I have in my satellite, I think 198 have soccer, or what, football. And I saw this new, it was part of a documentary, this new training technique. It's a room, and it has like a center, obviously, and then you have these different boxes. Each one is about a meter or so wide. And out from like different aspects, a soccer ball comes shooting out, a football, it comes shooting out, and another box lights up. So the person doesn't know where the ball is coming from and doesn't know where they have to kick it. So out comes a ball, at the same time a box lights up, and they have to take that ball and kick it into that box. It's outrageous. And the acquisition of coordinated skill set is going like that with these guys, because they can practice in this environment, and what they're doing is increasing, we'll talk about this specifically in the brain gym, they're increasing the coordination agility signaling in their brain, and they're increasing the degree of rate of the signal so that they can be more accurate faster. They're actually training, you think they're training their body, they're training their brain. They're training their brain in what's called contextual or field awareness of something coming from you don't know where, but you're open and you see it right away. Then at the same time, well, almost the same time, you see where you have to direct the ball that's coming from here over here. All of this, there's a lot of new stuff coming out in virtual reality as well. So it isn't just, extreme stuff where you try to, kill 17,000 guys with your video gun. The idea is that this is being used to slow down aging processes. It's being used for people that have traumatic brain injuries. It's being used all over the place. It's very, very cool. To me, the most accessible, and we'll take a break in a moment, the most accessible aspect of the mental aspect of neuroplasticity is what I call your mental movie. It's called the movie of me. I have a movie. It's called Garnet. I'm the producer, I'm the director, I'm the star, I'm the editor, I'm the critic, I'm the audience. It's the mental movie of me. You've got a movie called Robert. I don't know how much reading you've done on neuroplasticity. There's one guy named Joe Dispenza, he's a doctor, and he has a book. I think the book is really good, but the title of the book is worth the whole book. I got more from the title than from the book. Yeah. The title is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Breaking the habit of being yourself. Wow. I never quite thought of me as a habit. And that maybe aspects of that are habits I'd like to break. And to break those habits, I actually have to break what I call me. So, breaking the habit of being yourself. What do you think, Bob, when you hear that?
I love it.
Yeah? What do you love about it? Okay, I'm gonna, because I think we should hear somebody else's voice, not just mine.
What do I love about it?
Huh?
I just think it
Okay,
actively...
my question is, and this is Robert, and the question is, what do you like about the title of a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself? What does that mean to you when you hear that? Hold it close enough.
Yeah, what it means is, to me, it means that we form these habits of living,
Yeah.
lifestyle,
Yeah.
and then we're entrapped in them.
Yeah.
And that we have the ability to go beyond or discover new things, but it's a habit that so encases us that
It's called me.
it is called me, but me is actually can go beyond what we think we are.
Yeah,
it's
what's
just a
me
mental
anyway?
concept.
What's me, right?
Right. It's what feels good or what feels right or what feels, even if it's a habit that's wrong, it's comfortable because this is what I think I need to do.
I think what could go along with that, breaking the habit of being me. I think there's a synonym. It's okay, I'll do this. I think there's a synonym for me. It's reality. You know, breaking the habit of your view of reality and breaking the habit of being me. It seems like kind of like, I don't know if it's the same thing, but they're pretty close if they're not the same thing. Right?
Or beliefs.
Or, I mean, what you think is real, you think is real.
Right.
Maybe it's not.
We perceive reality, what we call reality, based on...
Say it again.
We perceive what we call reality based on expectations. And we can change our expectations.
And the thing about this is that this philosophy is not new. It's maybe expressed a little differently. What's new is this is not just a psychological process. That's what's new. That this is based in a physical process. You can change your mind. You think it's all about psychology. Oh, it's just in your head, meaning you just think it. But the thing is that you've got this thing called a brain, and whatever you believe about the mind or brain or whatever, I don't care, I don't know, I don't know. But the point is that all this stuff actually has a physiological basis. It's like having an exercise trainer that teaches you about how to do things with your body. Whether it's a yoga teacher or qigong teacher or weight or aerobics or whatever, they say, oh no, if you do this, it's like this. If you do, it's not just a belief. That even believing is a physical act. That you can shine certain kinds of machines into the head right now, and you can just watch the brain change with thought. I gave the example. I'll give it again. It's a good one. There's a lot of research. The research is just overwhelming. Go to at least my website, theneuralite.com, and look at the videos there. There are 4 videos about neuroplasticity. If you don't believe me, just listen to those. But quickly, took a bunch of people, didn't know how to play the piano, right hand only, and they taught them to play certain notes on the piano. And they practiced that every day for a certain number of hours, a certain number of days, and they tracked the whole thing with functional MRIs and BOLD studies and EEG. They took another group of people, they did exactly the same thing, except they only did it in their imagination. They never touched the keyboard. Same notes, same patterns, same number of hours of practice. Brain scanning, functional MRI, 98% the same patterns.
They did that a similar experience with injured divers 30 years ago.
Yeah. This is a lot of... these things have been repeated again and again and again, but now what we're understanding is the applicability. As a fact, it's fascinating, but so what? Now we are getting into the application side of that. The application side. And that's the big deal. That's really the big deal, is making use of it practically. It's fascinating theoretically, but making use of it, yes.
When I was doing the drug research work a long time ago,
Yes.
one of the things that we found with when the clients would detox and be going through sober living was that if we didn't take them out into the real world and retrain them how to actually do all their daily activities, integrate with their friends, go shopping, go to a restaurant, everything else off drugs, that the ones that chose to do that and integrate slowly into a regular lifestyle without drug addiction were highly more successful in not coming back to rehab. And the ones that chose to not do that wouldn't be able to cope without the drugs when they were released back into society.
Yeah, so, okay. I think this is, it's been about an hour that I've been speaking. And let's say this is good enough for an introduction, the theory of a complex adaptive system and why the Neurolight has three components: self-organization, energy requirements, connection requirements, and the fact of neuroplasticity, that there is no process in the brain that cannot be reversed. That's the position now of the leading and the best neuroscientists on a practical level. There is no function that cannot be reversed. The degree to which it can be reversed is conditional, but the fact is that any one of them and all of them are reversible. That's Robert Merznick, who is the pope of neuroplasticity. That's his position at this point. Question?
I'm just curious about your thoughts on the relationship between a repetition of an act and how it solidifies within the neuroplastic process and the changing of that. Is there a relation between how long you've been doing it and then if you're looking to change it?
Yeah, about repetition and change and how long. We'll go into these issues certainly into depth as we go into Brain Food and Brain Gym later today. But I can say that you always have to consider the starting point. You know, where a person is starting. If you're an exercise trainer and you ask the same questions about physical conditioning, and you had a 22-year-old who just did a triathlon, and you've got a 51-year-old perimenopausal woman semi-active, and you've got a 80-year-old sedentary individual, where you start gives you a lot of the guidance into those issues, a lot of that. I had said last night, and I'll repeat it quickly, that there are 4 categories of neuroplastic change. There are 3 types, but 4 categories. The 3 types are: you change the synapse, meaning that the pattern changes, but the wires are the same. I'm using dumb analogies, but the wires are the same, just the signaling pattern is different. That's synaptic. The other is called neurogenesis, where you actually have to lay down new cables. You create new nerves, new hard wires, because where you need to signal doesn't have the hard wiring. So you can't just change the signal configuration. You actually have to, the company comes along and lays cable out along your street. Neurogenesis. And the third one, a little complicated name, is called functional compensatory plasticity. That's where part of the brain that used to do some work doesn't work anymore. It's dead, maybe from a stroke, it's necrotic, or maybe in a horrible injury, that part of your brain got blown away. You don't have that in your head anymore. So proximate areas of the brain, close by typically, will adopt the functions. It's called functional compensatory plasticity, which is incredible. So those are the four types, but the categories of change which relate to reinforcement and repetition.
I only got 3.
Yes, there are 3 types, but 4 categories.
Okay.
So now I'm going to give you the 4 categories. The 3 types are anatomical, and the 4 types are physiological. All right, so in terms of anatomy, the synapse patterns change in the anatomy. That's synaptic. Neurogenesis is when you get new nerves in the anatomy. And the functional compensatory is when one part of the brain anatomically takes over the job from a dysfunctioning part. So that's the anatomy aspect. Your question is more functional. And this training is not going to be all this like microscience stuff. It's going to be practical application. But if you have to have some appreciation of this to make sense of your methodologies. Otherwise, you're just going to cook recipes, but if you don't have any cumin, all of a sudden you don't know what to do. I don't want you to be... In the beginning, you start to use methods and recipes. That's cool and that's fine. But you've got to be creative. You have to have insight. And sometimes you've got to change. It's like you've got a football Patriots, I can't believe it. You have to sometimes change the call in the play. Right? You have a plan, but you have to change it on the spot. I want you to be able to call plays, right in the hard count. So that's the anatomy. The physiology, the function is, I'll give you the names. We did it last night. Some people hate this stuff. Some of you love it. It's called functional plasticity. That's where the changes can happen in minutes, seconds to minutes to hours, meaning really fast right now. You can actually get neuroplastic change that fast. That's just functional. Easy come, easy go. Don't think it's going to be rooting well for long-term learning, but hey, sometimes you need help right now. And that help has to kick into gear pretty quickly. You can get that. Neuroplasticity has that capacity, as long as you have vitality, by the way. If you don't have enough energy, probability very low. If the connectivity is poor, probability very low. But there is that category. And that's like, wow. Within a couple of minutes after what you did, you feel a state change. Whew. The next one is called synaptic. First one is called functional plasticity. Second one is synaptic plasticity. That takes place over the course of days and weeks. Some number of days or a week or two, it takes that amount of time, and the evidence of the neuroplastic change starts to manifest. That's that's synaptic. First is functional, second is synaptic. Third one is neuronal, and that takes place over months. Usually the neuronal involves actually the neurogenesis. New nerve bodies are being created, and it takes a matter of months for those to complete the entire process of growing and then integrating. Because they don't just grow. When they grow, each neuron has probably got minimally 1,000 to 10,000 connections with other neurons. So it isn't just that the nerve grows. As the nerve is growing, it's connecting, thousands of times connecting. That's why it takes place over the course of months. Because it isn't just taking that long for a nerve to grow, it's for the nerve to grow and to integrate. Because now it's in the tribe. It's connecting. And if you figure exponentially, if even we choose a low number, if a neuron has on the average of 10,000 synaptic connections, that means it's 10,000 to the power of 10,000 for every neuron. Because every neuron, if it has 10,000 connections, those connections have 10,000 connections. It's like impossible numbers. That's why, as a complex adaptive system, like the weather, we can only deal with probabilities. That's why we'll talk about the brain skills sessions in depth. That's why they're called probability states. That's why there's a 50% chance of rain today. We live now using complex adaptive analysis for everything. It's not just the odds of the horse at the race, 31 odds on Billy Goat, but we talk about the probability of economic growth and the statistics in terms of what can happen in terms of the jobless rate and ocean temperatures and the weather and medical statistics. Hey, you've got a 51% risk factor if you take this drug, or if you don't take it, you have a 3% chance of complication if you don't take this drug. Doctor told me this one time. I'll skip the detail, but he said you have a 3% chance of this complication if you don't take this drug. I said, well, wait a minute. Let me rephrase that. I have a 97% chance of having no problem if I don't take the drug. He said, well, yes. He says, but by law, I have to advise you of the risk that if you don't take this drug, there is a 3% chance. Not 3% that it will happen. It's just even then, there's the 3% chance. It's not 3% guaranteed. I said, wait a minute. Let's put that the other way around. if I don't take this drug, I have a 97% chance of being totally fine without risking any side effects from the drug. He said, yes. I said, thanks. See you around. Right? The last one is systemic plasticity, and that takes place over the course of years. So years obviously shows you that it's a fully integrated, system-wide shift in neuroplasticity. Now keep in mind, and saying shit isn't really swearing, is it anymore? Right? You can have good shit or you can have bad shit. And it follows the same rules. You can that quickly, in seconds to minutes, get yourself into trouble, or you can do it over the course of days and weeks or months or years. So it's not as though like, oh, this is all great news. It's provocative news. It's like, whoa, wake up news. Because you kind of wonder, like, how in the world did I ever get into this situation? Right? Just what do they say? You got to sleep the bed you made or something like that? What's that saying? What's that saying? Isn't it like that? Sleep in the bed that you made?
Right. That's it.
Something like that, right? Okay.
Yeah, the one you brought.
Okay. By my watch, it's 10:25. 15 for real, but don't go far. Come on back and we'll start up again. But get some fresh air, get some sunshine, shake your legs. Let's put this on pause, if you know how.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll try and see if I can gauge.
Okay, Debbie? Debbie knows. She's the